The shelves are going to be open. Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30, and maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally.
Yeah, let me put it in context first. We've been using AI at Visa for many, many years to protect consumers from fraud and those types of things, and we'll continue to do that. But now what our product teams have done is used AI to empower consumers to have more effective and efficient shopping experiences, to be able to work with your agent, whether you're going to go, you need a new set of tennis shoes to run a marathon, or you're going to buy a Mother's Day gift, which is coming up in a week or two. Your agent will be able to go do that on your behalf. But for that to work, your agent needs the tools to do that. And we announced a lot of tools today that are going to make the payments work. And you need trust. You need to trust your agent, the merchant needs to trust the agent, and your bank needs to trust the agent. And we think that's where the products that we announced today step in and are going to really empower agentic commerce in a meaningful way.
And when you say agent, so this is an OpenAI, this is an Anthropic providing the actual agent to the end customer. This isn't Visa, building its own AI agent, for example.
Correct. And in fact, we announced today that we've been working on all this in partnership with Anthropic, with OpenAI, with Microsoft, with Stripe, with Mistral, with Perplexity, with all of the leaders in this space. We've been working together to ensure that this is going to work in a broad-based way, because you want your agent to go buy something for you. You want it to be able to go everywhere, and you want to be able to do it on whatever platform that you choose you want to do that on. We have become the partner of choice for crypto exchanges around the world, enabling their user base. Maybe they have Bitcoin at a Coinbase account, be able to use the Coinbase Visa card to go spend without having to think about how do they convert that Bitcoin and how much is it worth on that day or things like that. That's been, I think, a really important product for the community. And the stablecoin work is an extension of that. There has been real demand for stablecoins around the world. You see that in the numbers. And, consumers that have stablecoins want to be able to spend some of it, of course. And they don't want to have to think about, well, where can I go use these stablecoins? I don't know if they're going to be accepted somewhere. That's where we step in. With a stablecoin denominated Visa account, I can just go spend it anywhere that Visa is accepted anywhere around the world.
Getting these tariffs down. The president put in this 145% tariff. China comes back with a retaliation of 125%. What do you want China to do?
Well, I think this is going to be a multi-step process, Maria. I think first there will need to be a de-escalation on these very large tariffs. 145 and 125 are not sustainable on the Chinese side. We saw some very poor GDP numbers out of them. Out of China yesterday. We're now seeing very large estimates of job growth loss from 5 to 10 million jobs. So the Chinese economy is slowing down substantially here. So what we will first want to see is a de-escalation. We will likely revisit the purchase agreements that were put together in the first China trade agreement in January of 2020 to make sure that the Chinese are honoring those agreements. And then we are going to push for fair trade with China. They are the most imbalanced economy in the history of the world, and they need to rebalance. Now, Maria, the big deal that could be done here is President Trump is oriented the U.S. toward a manufacturing economy, taking us back to the strength that's been sapped over the past several decades. Everyone knows that China needs to rebalance towards more consumption. So if we could rebalance together, then that would be the big deal. But in the meantime, we're going to bring down the unfair trade barriers and hold them to the agreements that they previously signed.
Okay, so they have to keep their commitments that they already committed to President Trump in his first term, because they stopped buying the agriculture that they said that they would under Joe Biden. We know that. And you say you want them to buy more from America. You got to up the consumption. What about the non-tariff barriers? What about some of the things that China does, like the surveillance of America, buying land near our military installations, all of the other non-tariff barriers that President Trump has spoken about, bullying our Navy ships?
Well, look, Maria, there's a whole range of the bad behavior by the Chinese. We're going to be focused on trade. But the non-tariff trade barriers for China are especially insidious. China actually has low tariffs that if you look at the stated tariffs, it's just impossible for U.S. companies to do business there. And when they do, there's substantial IP theft, there's cyber hacking. So, everything is on the table for the economic relationship. I am confident that the Chinese will want to reach a deal. And as I said, this is going to be a multi-step process. First, we need to de-escalate, and then over time, we will start focusing on a larger trade deal.
Well, I wouldn't say that Americans are soft. Americans are super hardworking.
We're pretty soft. We're pretty soft.
We
can't handle much hardship.
No, but in China, there have been. But Chinese people are really willing to deal with certain levels of hardship that Americans might not be. So I've already been hearing about factories saying that they're going to go into hibernation, that they're going to be paying the very minimal amount to just retain the workers, because retaining the workers is really important. As you could, I'm sure you appreciate as well in the U.S. Like when you want to keep your workers, but if you're willing to pay a minimum amount, then people could people say they eat bitterness, and they say that Chinese people can eat bitterness really, really well.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher, and I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you join the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And also, guys, make sure you go like and follow the TikTok. More videos to come. And we have Visa says they've been using AI for a long time. And we know that's a lot of the big banks. And now they want AI agents working for you. But you're giving up your privacy. And all these big corporations are working together. And that's the key thing that he stated. They're all coming together to push this digital economy. And Visa and MasterCard have partnered with most exchanges and a lot of these crypto projects to make it seamless for consumers. And customers are so used to seeing Visa and MasterCard, they won't even know they're using stablecoins or any type of crypto. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. And these stablecoins keep the Fed in control, and with smart contracts, they'll be able to tell you what, when, and how to buy, and you have 3 to 6 months to spend it, or poof, it's gone. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. And we have Scott Bessent says the deal with China is going to take a while. And Scott Bessent says China is hurting, but he doesn't go over the United States. And we know the United States is going to hurt way more than China. And China consumers know how to manage their money. They're willing to take a hit for their country. The United States citizens would never, ever do that. And that's the reason why it's problem, reaction, solution. The U.S. will have their universal basic income because it's going to get bad. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. And now Trump makes another move, puts a sanction on Iran oil. Anyone who buys oil from them won't do business with the United States. And we know that China gets the oil from Iran. So that's another hit on China. And we can clearly see if this doesn't de-escalate, how it's going to blow up on the back half of this year. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you. And we have Apple doing buybacks. And we know they're going to take a hit from these China tariffs. Plus, the United States job market is slowing. And we know buybacks will help manipulate the stock. Give the illusion that someone is buying the stock, but really it's his own company. And don't forget, guys, buybacks used to be illegal. I've done plenty of videos on it. And will the stock market continue to pump and dump? Yes, it will. And we see a lot of manipulation on the long end of these yield rates. That's the only reason why the stock market is up. But we know eventually Japan has to make a move in interest rates. And also China and Japan eventually have to start selling treasuries. And that's when we're going to start hearing the drums get louder. And those drums are going to be nothing but a distraction so they can bring in AI, robots, algorithms, and drones to take over the economy without a human involved. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
So this is interesting. I don't know what secondary sanctions is, Halima, but if you're going to do that on a country that buys Iranian oil, and China pretty much buys most, and India buys some, and I mean,
no, it's essentially China is the almost sole purchaser of Iranian barrels at this point. Now, Malaysia is a site where Iranian barrels go and then turn into some other country's barrels. So will they be targeting Malaysia as well? Because that is essentially a laundromat for Iranian barrels. But if they are to impose secondary sanctions on China and essentially say, you can do business with Iran or you can do business with the United States, that would be a very, onerous, new sanction. That's said, there is significant sanctions architecture already in place when it comes to Iranian oil exports. The issue has largely been one of sanctions enforcement. And some are arguing that China is simply not going to play along, that the U.S. doesn't have the capacity to really drive down Iranian exports at this stage. But again, we really have to see whether there is a very concerted effort to go after these barrels. And again, I would look to potentially targeting a country like Malaysia, where these barrels do show up in significant numbers.
To me, I think the biggest head scratcher, at least from the press release, was actually the buyback. You kind of look at the company ever since they've started doing buybacks back in 2012. Typically, they either increase versus the prior year or kind of hold it in line. This, to take a $10 billion step back versus the prior year, I think is really kind of un-Apple-like. So it'll be interesting to kind of see if they talk anything about, greater investments or what have you on the call, but definitely going to want to hear about that.
Okay, we priced a lot of damage at 4,800 on April 7th. There was a capitulatory move. I think the wild card now is, are we going to have a recession? Okay, and I think our economists would say it's a coin toss. It's a 50-50. I think most of your guests are probably in the same boat. I mean, I think most commentators, we just don't know. And if you don't get a recession, the lows are in, okay, for the year. If we get a recession, you probably got to do a full retest, maybe a slight break, okay, and that would be a labor cycle. That's the only way to define a recession is a labor cycle. All this stuff about negative GDP, I don't care about that. I care about, do companies start laying employees off in a way where you get a next round of revisions that become more serious?
We both know, for obvious reasons, we're not going to have an answer to that question for a while. Does that mean that we just chop around? We may have some volatility come back. We feel like it's been this nice little sanguine move higher. Everybody's feeling good. As Adam Parker was just saying, everybody was so negative. Now everybody's feeling so much better about everything. But are we due just for more choppy?
That's basically our call. It's a range trade, right?
I don't like doing lists like this because, it puts you on the spot. If you forget something, it's on you, not me. But what's the four?
Yeah, so, it's not all four, but we need to see some combination of these four things. I'd say the first one is some deal on tariffs with China. Okay. That's the one that matters.
All right, check.
Okay. Number two, dovish Fed. Okay, where they kind of get off the stick. Okay, number three, we see rates come down in a more meaningful way, the back end of the market, without growth really deteriorating. Okay, and then the fourth one, which is probably the most important for stocks, is earnings revisions. Earnings revisions have been on a downward trajectory for quite a while, but if that were to turn up, so maybe one or two of those together, we could see a breakout of this range we've been stuck in.
As digital intelligence gets smarter and it gets cheaper, what is going to be the impact on demand? And what we found out last night was that demand is accelerating.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go, but clearly we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth
instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling.